もう振り返らない。私はシルク。
The second episode begins with Nick and his friends as they are going to register in the Adventurers Guild, and Nick tells her that he wants to register in the guild, and she begins to mention their names as a light warrior, a warrior of the dragon race, a magician, and a healer, and tells them that it is not a bad formation for the party. And she tells them that the dragon warrior has miraculously managed to survive and return alone from a C-rank maze, and says that she has become very popular among adventurers, and her friends marvel at that because she has gone through so many hardships. And she asks him, "What is the name of your party?" Nick replies to her and they agree on the name of the group, and that is
Survivors.
コロン。
サバイバーズってどうだ?
Their meeting that night in that bistro was nothing short of a miracle. How will their adventure go? And then we find Nick meeting with them and discussing the laws and telling them, we must follow these 3 rules. Tiana asks, what's the first one? She replies to him and says we don't interfere in each other's hobbies. Zam. Take good care of our money. Kurun. Make her come back alive, no matter what. And he completes his words and says, the money will not be monitored only by one person, but we will share the responsibilities. I'll handle the accounting, and Tiana makes sure it matches the actual funds. Kurun will deal with the safe. Kurun says she's nervous about it. And Nick says he's going to make a really strong safe that won't be broken by magic or hammers. Zam objects to this and says that it makes it useful for him, and he deceives them. You make it as if you are assigning responsibilities, but you are actually creating a beneficial situation for yourself. But Nick tells him if you think there is any exploitation, just say it out loud. From what I've seen so far, you have the least chance of touching the safe. Nick says if I want to steal it, I have to be careful of Tiana's watchful eyes. He goes on and says I've learned through experience from what happened in countless battle arts. Confidence is not when you leave everything to others without a word. Trust is when you don't question each other. So, to trust and doubt others at the same time, do you trust me? Kurun asks. But Kurun remains silent and did not respond to him, which means that they all did not trust each other until this moment. Trusting someone is hard, Nick says. Trust is comfort. After all, in a way, you're leaving your destiny in someone else's hands. And we ended up like this because we trusted others. That's why we suspect each other so much right now. But I still want to trust you all. The next day Nick starts and says their first task is in the waterworks. Since we started from 0 in G rank, we are now only allowed into 3 mazes. We need to eliminate 2 of them and defeat the bosses there. After that, we'll graduate to F. It sounds easy, on paper, at least. In reality it's not that hard. It serves as a training ground to make sure you learn the basics. And then Zam says, nevertheless, this is the first quest for me and Tiana. Tiana replies that she doubts that what she learned at the academy will be fully applicable as it is. And then Nick tells them this thing is our first target, slime. He's kinda cute, in fact he chews grass, but his friends marvel at how easy he is, so he tells them he still eats meat. If overgrown, it might start eating the cattle from the villages. And you can kill it with your own hands by taking the heart, and that will be the source of our money, so make sure you collect them all and say the same. Forming this party might be the right choice. After all, maybe things will get a lot better with this group. I'm ready to do that, Zam says, but taking the life of a living being is still not right. Nick tells him that if we don't do that, you will turn into monsters. If we leave the monsters and swamps alone, the maze will end up getting bigger. So we just have to think of it this way. However, Zam says, why do monsters attack people in the first place? Tiana replies that there have been researchers trying to communicate with different monsters, but they end up attacking the monsters. So we have no choice but to fight, and Nick says these creatures are so sticky, and suddenly Tiana stumbles.
オークやゴブリン階層が上がっても量が増えて
ですね。ああ。
倒したことあるんだって。
この階層のやつ
and says she will make them pay for what they did. Then she attacks them, but accidentally unleashes her magic on Kurun. Kurun is shocked and says she trusted her. Then you leave it and go. Then
血が間違えるかもしれない。 ってもっと周囲
信じ
に気を
ようとし
配って。
てた。
大丈夫。
Then they go upstairs and find a big monster there, and Nick tells them that he is the boss of these monsters. Suddenly, Tiana attacks this monster quickly with her magic, but we find it exploding in them. Then Nick says the huge slime interacts with the powerful magic and spreads everywhere. And Tiana tells him, "Why didn't you tell me that?" Then Nick says that these are all my devices. I'm good at naked fighting, short sword, and scouting. I can also evaluate equipment and do some accounting. That's it. I can't do magic at all. I also can't handle heavy weapons. Same with crafting and healing. Zam asks him, "Why do you tell us about your abilities?" "You're wary of others because you don't know what they can do," Nick says, "so we can get close to each other and trust each other. We were all taken advantage of at one time for our skills. The jealousy I was born out of, and all the deceitful tricks I caused. That's what made us feel so disappointed. Of course we don't want to show our real skills now." Then we find that Zam starts talking about himself and says it will be easy to kill me with swords, fists, and magic. I'm too weak for everything. Having said that, I wouldn't recommend taking a long fight against me. I can use healing magic to deal with all kinds of injury after all. And Tiana speaks and says that she is a witch, and that she prefers the magic of wind and water, and that she can be between them, and then she apologizes to Korin and says what happened at that time is my fault. I'm sorry. She says she is powerless against fire and earth magic, and has fast, close-range attacks. Then Nyana feels cold, but Korin lights a fire to warm Tiana.
任せろ。
しっかり狙いなさいよ。
And at this time we see that they are starting to adapt to each other. Then we see that they have entered the elf forest and started fighting monsters. They have a kind of intelligence, Nick says. After all, they can even make formations using simple language. And we see that they are amazed at Nick's power and say, "Was he really that strong?" Up north, she says, there's about a dozen of them within 500 meters or something. They're all over the place, but the closest one is right there. She says she found out by my magic search, detecting magical energy within a radius of 3 kilometers. Stop, you are amazing. I don't think there's a lot of people out there who can do research like that on a scale. And then they talk about Nick and he's so strong, and all of a sudden Tiana feels like a goblin, but he's 5 times stronger. And he's most likely a ghoul that evolved from the hobgoblin. Much stronger than any previous monster, and it will be difficult for all of us because we lack experience as a team. And then they say, "Shall we back down or what?" Nick says if we let them do that, they will group up with other goblin groups and get big, end up attacking people in the near vicinity, and most importantly, we can make money from them. Troubled times we live in, right? If I remember correctly, ghouls have a high resistance to magic. Then Nick shows them the plan and says the plan is simple. Tiana will distract her with magic, Zem will distract us with support magic, and then Korin and I will cut her down. However, in order to cut through the powerful body of an ogre, we will need your strength, Korin. She tells him not to worry, I am her. On the way, Korin says to Tiana, "I still don't fully trust you." Tiana says, "I'm sure the same applies to everyone. Everyone thinks the same. We don't know if we can trust each other, but we still want to, regardless." After that, the adventurers reach the place of the monsters, and we find Tiana advancing with her and Nick, and Zam and Tiana protect them from their backs with magic. Korin says she can do this and I should trust them. She says Tiana apologized and bowed her head. Even though she was a noblewoman, she would never bow her head to anyone before. "I won't look back anymore. I will trust them."
それくらいやってみせる。つららない。それくらい。人に頭を下げるなんて無縁だったはずのあんなの最初から決まってる。もう振り返らない。私はシルク。どうだ、やってみせ。
And then Korin can kill the monster in this wonderful way. What a terrifying power. And then we find that they collect monsters to get the spoils. This will be the end of the second part of the anime. Adventurers. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel so that you receive all that is new.